This is RackAddicts After Hours.
Hey everybody, welcome back to RackAddicts After Hours. We're on episode 18. Unfortunately, it seems that Zencastr may or may not have let us down, so now we can actually see each other from our remote locations. We're using Zoom and trying to bodge something together, but it appears to be working. So, what's everyone been up to? I've done a bit of baking. I'm snacking on a homemade bagel that came out of the oven today, did some bread before. Telmo, I think you've been doing some music nerdery of epic proportions.
So for me this week, I've been doing quite an extensive research, part of a university assessment, again, part of a portfolio assignment that will be delivered at the end of this month. It's an essay that talks about real-world dynamics and the music business, so it's kind of like a report in that sense. It tends to reflect basically the status of the music business up until now. So there's a bit of history about the last maybe 20 years of the music business up until today. Obviously, these pandemic news are affecting the music business, consequently musicians and artists and people that work in the industry. So I just intend to give a bit of explanation about how to profit from it today, and how can we maybe in the future with live streaming and with other forms of communicating with your fans, such as crowdfunding, what other forms can a musician benefit from it? There's also a small part of the essay that talks about carbon neutral festivals. I think it's quite an important thing to talk about. I think people are really not aware how much CO2 emissions going and see your favorite band costs. So that's more of the academic stuff out of the way. I've been doing quite a lot of practicing as well this week. Thanks to my guitar teacher, Joel Bell. For those who don't know, Google him. Incredible guitar teacher, incredible guitar player. So he recently introduced me to the Barry Harris method. So he's basically a bebop jazz master, and he's been around since like the 50s, do you know what I mean?
So not only is he a bebop master, he is a Marmite bebop master. What a title.
That's just brilliant. So yeah, man. And he also changed the way that we look at harmony within a jazz progression. So imagine a 2-5-1 or rhythm changes. Basically, Barry Harris developed different methods of looking at all the harmonic possibilities that can be played within that certain sphere of music. So it's very interesting, man. It's a very cool thing to look at. Oh, and forgot to mention as well, if you're gonna look at this method, go on YouTube and search for things I've learned with Barry Harris. It's a guitar player that studied this method with him, and he basically shares that with the world. It doesn't matter if you're a sax player, if you're a drummer, or just if you're interested in harmony or just improvisation. Have a look at this channel. It's just glorious. It's the basis of academic music learning.
YouTube's always a good place for some pretty excellent free resources if you know where they are.
Oh, absolutely. You have to look behind the curtain, but it's findable. So yeah, that's music stuff out of the way. Life-wise, I bought such an awesome blender.
The fanciest of blenders.
Quite a nice one, actually.
The one and only Vitamix.
Yes, mate. Vitamix, a 2300i, which is quite like middle of the park kind of one. Decent.
Wait, there are different levels of Vitamix?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I have this diet based on smoothies and soups right now, which is great. But it also does desserts like ice cream and stuff like that. You can also have plenty of like sauces or like salsas if you're into that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's super healthy. It can chop stuff for you, make soups up to 40 degrees, which is great. it's just such an easygoing thing to have in your kitchen. Absolutely recommend it now. Buy one today.
Okay, the question that's on my mind at the moment is it better than the BlendTech Total Blender from Will It Blend? iPhone smoke. Don't breathe this. Or whatever,
That's bringing back memories, man.
BlendTech Total
That's
Blender.
a pretty good impression, to be fair.
From Will It, as seen on Will It Blend.
No blender can ever beat that blender.
I wonder if that channel is still going. I've got to find out now. Will It Blend?
Well, I went for a bullet last week. One of the, I can't remember, not the NutriBullet.
NutriBullets.
Yeah, one of them. I can't remember which. It wasn't the more expensive one. I had a request that we could do one in the house. So when I was last doing a substantial shop, I grabbed one on the way through.
Looks like the last video from Will It Blend is from July the 13th, 2018, and they did the Amazon Echo. And that's the last we heard from BlendTech's Will It Blend.
A couple of things. I've been prepping the workshop because I'm really trying to gird my loins and get stuck into all these modular kits and maybe even start tackling the TTSH build. But I'm going to sort of line up the kits. So I'm going to do the hex mix. Is this the hex mix?
Oh yeah, watch out for the panel on that one. That's an odyssey getting the panel on those.
Okay, so when you is it the alignment of the sort of various switches and pots and things like that?
Yeah, because there's so many of them, it took me probably 10 minutes just to sort of populate that particular board and wiggle the panel into position. That was actually when I did it. You know how they all, on especially Thonk kits on the build documents. Actually, no, the Bafako build documents, which are really good. They'll say, "Oh yeah, take a break. There's no harm in finishing it tomorrow." And I just go, "No, I must finish it now." And yeah, I think it must have been maybe 7 hours in when I got to that point. And yeah, the frustration came quite quickly. But it worked fine, so we're all good.
And that was getting the faceplate on pre-soldered,
Exactly.
so you hadn't soldered any of the bits,
No.
so they're all kind of jiggling around nice and loose, and then you can place it and then use it as a kind of guide for soldering and so forth.
Exactly.
So I'm going to do a bit of the old knolling and get it all
Yeah.
the kits all spread out, and the crucial thing, which is a sort of schoolboy error that I have fallen into occasions, I'm going to test everything.
Oh yeah.
Before the soldering iron even gets switched on.
Yeah, next time if I do invest a bit more into a kit, I'll have to get, transistor-y, diode-y, capacitor testing stuff so I can actually have a good look at it all.
So I've got the hex mixer to do. I've got the is it Lollipop, the compressor?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever want to go stereo lollipops, I'm probably going to sell mine. So there we go.
Well, go full stereo compression with side chaining. There you go.
Yeah.
So you're not? Is it a case that you're not that impressed with it, or you just?
No, I think it's amazing. It's just massive, and I'm doing the whole one case thing.
And it's just there's no room for it.
Just to try and limit the spending, and yeah, there's not that much room. It's really nice. The threshold control is backwards, so it says sort of maximum all the way to the left, which confuses me, but other than that, it's super cool. Sounds great.
Just the way they've designed it. But yeah, I just wanted. I specifically got it because of the side chaining. So it'd be interesting to see how effective that is. See if I can really get sort of things like kicks pumping through.
That's all I use it for.
Other sort of sequences, and so you get some nice.
Absolutely.
And is it quite effective? It's really sort of one of.
Yeah.
Okay, so I shall be looking forward to doing that one. Other than that,
I'd recommend some parallel compression as well, because you've got the mix control on it.
Okay.
So you can stick some drums through it, and it'll be really, really good.
Really nice and tight and punchy and. Yeah, that sounds great.
Definitely.
And I've been doing a reasonable amount of VR as well. So sort of we mentioned in the last week or the week before's podcast. I just purchased a game called The Room, which is effectively escape room, but it's based on a kind of Victorian mystery type thing, and you're investigating some explorer who's gone missing in a museum somewhere in London. It's all very sort of abstract.
Yeah, from the screenshots, it reminds me of Professor Layton games.
So how far are you in the game at the moment?
I'm in what I would describe as the third part. It looks like there's sort of 4 rooms in total. So you start in a kind of office environment, which I assume is that your office, you're sort of a Victorian or Edwardian detective. It's that sort of period. And then you move to a sort of museum environment, which there's a lot of Egypt or Egyptian type artifacts, and you explore them and figure out puzzles. And then I've moved to what looks like a sort of Norman church type of environment, which I'm currently I think I'm relatively close to the end of that, and then there'll be the 4th and I suspect the final chapter. So a lot of some VR games are quite extensive, but a lot of them are, if you really hit them hard, they're sort of rated at only 5 or 6 hours in total playtime if you play them through quite aggressively, let's say. But I tend to do sort of maybe an hour max. As I say, the headset gets quite tiresome. The eye strain is quite noticeable, but most probably the way I've got the headset configured. But it's very immersive. I mean, as I said before, the sense of what they call presence, which is the terminology that your brain is convinced that you're actually in the environment, even if it's a very artificial, let's say cartoony environment. Your brain just goes, well, I'm in a cartoon now. It all goes a bit Roger Rabbit on you. There is a really good and free I don't know if even describe it as a game. It's more of an experience, and it's a recreation of the actual ISS, the International Space Station. So you can actually float around, and it's the same momentum. So you pull yourself around with your arms.
Ah, that's cool.
And you can spin, and it gives you the sense of weightlessness. Unfortunately, if you don't watch out, you get VR nausea because. Well, I mean, the astronauts say that they get quite nauseous, well, potentially for the first 24 to 48 hours, don't they, when they start experiencing it all. But you're pulling yourself around this weightless environment inside the ISS, but your body's saying, no, I'm sitting on the couch. But your brain's going, no, I'm looking out the pergola onto the Earth and all that. So, but it's if you don't go too aggressively, you can work your way around with that sort of form of motion, and it's quite a good experience. And again, it's a free app, so the only cost there is the cost of whatever headset that you're using.
Nice.
Certainly, if you want something to distract yourselves, I would certainly suggest getting one of these headsets because it's a complete departure. It's really an out-of-body experience. So yeah, that's mostly been my week. I've been trying to muster up some enthusiasm about being in the studio and trying to do something. I have been in sort of having a twiddle, but I am struggling a bit to try and get motivated, and I think that's something that a lot of people are suffering from. I've sort of listened to other podcasts and listened to other people and talked to other people, and it seems to be a very pervasive thing at the moment. It's very hard to get motivated under the current conditions, but I think it's important to try and strive to do something, because I think it'll be beneficial for yourself personally if you can sort of engage with something and certainly create something, whether that's cooking something or recording something or whatever, creating something. It's going to give you some sort of stimulus. I wanted to quickly ask you guys, as you've all been in work and I've been sort of cowering at home like the coward I am,
self-preservation, that's what it is.
Yeah, my spider senses have been tingling like hell recently. But I just wanted to ask, get sort of a picture of what items you guys thought were sort of most keenly being snatched up on the mail order side of things.
Yeah, I don't know if we have an earlier episode where we were speaking about this, but it's definitely USB microphones, entry-level audio interfaces, and tons of pianos, unreasonable numbers of pianos.
Yeah, I mean, I was being derogatory initially on the outset of this, saying, that's exactly what, in a very sarcastic way, it's exactly what you need to buy when there's a global crisis. Let's rush out and buy a piano. But obviously, I've got to eat my own words because it's exactly what seems to have happened.
Yep. And to be fair, you gotta keep yourself occupied, and I suppose there'll be parents at home needing to, I suppose, just educate their own children if they don't have any other means to get some of the arty stuff in there. Not a bad shout,
quite
really.
Logical. What about the guitar side of things? I mean, was that more difficult?
I don't know. Telmo, have you been able to see anything from the warehouse side of things?
Yeah, not only guitar stuff, but also high-tech stuff and electronic drums and anything that one can chuck in their living room. Yeah, I've noticed there's this immense need to suddenly buy a huge amount of guitar strings like toilet paper.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, do you know, I kind of get it. Fair enough. But buying 15 packs of guitar and 15 of acoustic and bass strings.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I did amend a guy's order over the phone, and he picked like some Elixir strings, so they're kind of 15 odd quid a pack. And I said, yeah, so yes, we need those Elixir strings, sir. And how many packs would you need? He's like, oh, I think I better 8. I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's a lot of money.
There we go.
On strings.
Yeah, loads of strings, man. But yeah, not only that, just to follow up on what you guys were just saying earlier on, and just mentioning the other departments as well, I see a lot of beginners packs, a lot of people buying their first piano, stools, and headphones, and people buying their first electric guitar. Kids are at home, they've got to be entertained somehow. Which I totally get it, and these times require specific measures. So I think people are doing a good job. Spending money on instruments is always a good thing. So, yeah.
Actually, Temo, one thing that I think you'd enjoy, I did manage to sell one of those Alvarez ukulele basses.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking of you as I sold it.
Yeah, I bought one about 2 weeks ago, I think.
Is it the Alvarez one?
No, it's a Kala bass. So that's the Californian one.
Oh, better then.
Probably. I haven't played the Alvarez one. But yeah, it's really nice to play. And
nice.
It's the U bass, they call it.
U basses.
I've been thinking about purchasing something, but I keep sort of wandering onto various websites and looking at certain modules, and then sort of no. Can I justify this? Is it just sort of for the sake of buying something? Do I really need? I mean, in reality, I don't really need anything apart from food at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
in terms of purchases, I did cave in. I have ordered a Nintendo Switch.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I think what happened is my other half's getting Animal Crossing. I think I personally I haven't played Skyrim in way too long saturation, so I'll be getting Skyrim. I got the bundle with Witcher 3 as well. So, yep, I've no idea how they managed to get it on the Switch, but the reviews say it performs incredibly well.
Oh, I love a good bit of Skyrim.
So, yeah, I'm going to have pocket-sized, infinite, well, not infinite, but incredibly in-depth open-world RPG type things. I love Skyrim. I just miss it.
you can do Skyrim in VR. I mean, it's not a proper VR written program, obviously, because it pre-existed. But there are ways of getting yourself into a Skyrim environment.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
You just got to be careful with the motion, because say the type of motion works on a flat screen.
Yeah.
Really is quite physically can be really physically upsetting. In the VR world, because as I say, it's a very shortcut to the as I said before, the VR nausea.
Yeah, if there's one game that could get me to invest, it would be like a proper VR designed Elder Scrolls game. That'd be pretty cool.
I'm sure they're working on it. There's been several attempts, and then you've got Half-Life. I can't pronounce it, Alex. So it's just been released, and it's apparently people say they've really thought about how it operates within VR, and there's a lot of people saying that it's the new benchmark for VR because of the clarity and the fact that you can examine virtually any object you can pick up and look at. And
well, there's a slew of YouTube videos of people covering songs on the piano that you can play in the game. It's pretty amusing.
That just shows you how much functionality they've built into it. So I mean, I would imagine there's going to be something on the sort of Skyrim, if not the writers or the development house that produces Skyrim. I would imagine them potentially working on something.
Nice one. Well, that's perfect. We can move on to a belated happy birthday to our favourite man, Dave Smith from Sequential. What was that, the 2nd?
Yeah, it's the April the 2nd, which was, let me think, was that Thursday or was that
I've lost all track of everything date-related now.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what day it is, or was that even Wednesday? Anyway, so Dave was 70 last week, and Sequential, as we should call them down. The Dave Smith Instruments put out a YouTube video. That's how I was alerted to it. But I had a quick sort of delve into. I'm sort of relatively aware of his background, but I thought I'd have just a quick recap. So Dave formed Sequential Circuits originally in 1974. He designed the Prophet 5 in 1977, which made him 27, I want to say.
Not a bad thing to be doing at 27, one of the biggest, most audible synthesizers ever, possibly.
It was used in some of the Madonna hits, John Carpenter, most of the 80s goodness, really.
No shortage of big names.
Yeah, I think it was, for those who could afford such a beastie, it was quite ubiquitous, certainly one of the classics. And unfortunately, it was about by 86, the company had had its day, and the Sequential name fell under the control of Yamaha, but he also went on to work with Yamaha, so I wonder whether that was where that relationship was developed. And he also worked with Korg, so he was very key to the development of some key things, including MIDI, which he was one of the main contributors in coordination with Roland and Tom Oberheim. And then he came back to the fray in 2002, where he started Dave Smith Instruments, and we kind of know from there what's happened. And then recently, in 2018, they got the Sequential name back from Yamaha.
Yeah. What was the first synth they released as DSI?
I'm not sure. I know that certainly
So I think the earliest ones I know of is the Mofos, to be honest. Well, that I was aware when they were released, at least.
The Evolver and the Polyevolver are quite old. I mean, I've had mine for quite a long time, but that was around for quite a long time. The Prophet 8, the original version with the rotary encoders, I'm not quite sure how long that one's been around either.
The original Evolver. That was the first release as DSI.
And was it the keyboard version or the desktop one?
Keyboard.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, and then subsequently they did the desktop one, they did the Polyevolver, and then the Polyevolver in a rack, I think it's a 1U rack version, which
oh wow,
you just don't see. If I could get my hands on one, I would love to.
Oh yeah,
but the chances of that are very slim. I think nowadays there's certain keyboards that people just aren't letting go of.
One of my favorite products by Dave Smith is the Tempest, the drum machine.
Yeah, and since it's discontinued at the moment anyway.
Yeah, there are plenty of artists out there that are using the Tempest almost as a drum machine kind of meets drum kit performing kind of way. It's really cool, man. I dig it. It's a very high-end product as well, right?
I think so, yeah.
It's a very well-made machine, but it's quite pricey, isn't it? I think there were just a few of the last ones around, because I know it kind of went away and then suddenly they were in stock again. I thought, that's strange. I thought they were over, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, so Dave, happy birthday, Dave Smith. Right, I also note that Behringer have been releasing little short videos on their System 55.
Return to the B word.
Yes, unfortunately, they do tend to be... consistent with these. I expect they want to keep the whole ball rolling as they have been for the sort of last couple of years, especially the last 6 months or so, when they've been releasing a lot of videos and a lot of keeping the whole thing alive. I'm not sure when. I mean, Ben, I believe you were saying that you saw them listed on Thomann.
Thomann. Let me actually, since we have the technology, I will get you the prices as they are today. I know they're all pre-order, and they say available in 6 to 8 weeks. Which, as we know Behringer, that's the wildest guess anybody could ever have. But let's see if I can find them. Often the case that you search Behringer modular and it just comes up with like the Crave and things, but let's see what we've got. They're incredibly cheap, so if I do a sort price low to high, they should turn up. Here we go. So you can have a 2x4 passive multiple for £29.
Okay.
What else we got? So sequential switch, £44. There's an envelope generator and a VCA. It's all £44. A mixer, and because it's modelled on the actually, if you watch the video, they'll say obviously they're going after realism, which I'll come back to. I think that's actually laziness, but it's Eurorack voltage, and then they have some contraption for stepping that down to lower the headroom and then increase the distortion available. But they've got the mixer there, which will have some nice drive at £46. What are we going?
Wow.
46. The 961 interface, which is a trigger converter and things at £71. So this laziness thing is S trigger and V trigger related. So in the early days, actually I think all of is still the case with Moog Modular, I think. Put me right if I'm barking up the wrong tree, Pete. But they have two trigger types, S-trig and V-trig. Now, one of them is like it can trigger an envelope generator, and it can function as a gate as well if you kind of keep it high. The other one I think is kind of tempo, and you can't mix and match them like you can in Eurorack. And they're saying, oh yeah, we've still got S-trigs and V-trigs because we went for historical accuracy. I think they just couldn't be bothered to add a tiny little bit in the circuitry which would actually make them compatible, because it's only a polarity thing as far as I'm aware.
Well, and also there's a voltage thing, isn't it? One side, I can't remember, it's the plus or minus is 12 volts, but the other side's only 6.
Yeah, and I mean, it can't be that hard to change it.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it sounds like they've really just
lifted the schematics.
The designs like for like. It does also mean that the system's somewhat closed off if it's not going to be...
Yeah, I mean, to an extent. I mean, the oscillator should work just fine. So the 921 voltage controlled oscillator, a classic design, 94 quid. Not half bad. These are all fully compatible with regular Eurorack power supplies and things. They've got the fixed filter bank in there. But the one that's most interesting for me is going to be the big old 3-row sequencer, and then the sequential switch to go with it as well. But there's no pricing available at the moment, which makes me sad. Yeah, the question is always the reliability, but assuming it holds up fine, definitely, because they've got cheap cases available as well. But it should be a good way in.
I always find with Behringer where it really starts getting a bit hairy with their releases is where you've got the combination of an old analog design, but they've intersected or injected some digital aspect to it.
Okay, well that should be promising then, because there's nothing digital or there are no.
No, that's what I was thinking.
There's no microprocessors in them either. It's all discrete components. Oh, apparently, I think there's one exception.
I'm thinking. Because typically, if as you guys would mostly agree, that most of the problems, or a lot of the problems we've seen with a lot of the Behringer stuff, is sort of iffy firmware for the digital, sort of control side.
No manuals.
Things like yes, that as well. But it's certainly where they've got sort of an extra sequencer or an effects processor or something that is more digital, and it's that area where they're having the problems. Where initially, obviously, they resolve the problems in the fullness of time with firmware updates. But whereas this, as you say, if it's all discrete components, then in theory, there's very little that can go wrong. Especially if they've literally copied the plans.
Could potentially
wholesale.
Be very repairable as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I may well buy some of it.
Okay, well, we'll look out for that one and maybe comment a bit more when they become available. We'll have to see it. So this is an item that I put into the show notes that just kind of dovetails back to what Telma was talking about. So as we've mostly all witnessed, is that all the frustration musicians, which mostly includes most of us as well in some respects, have all started going virtual because of the lack of live venues and lack of opportunity to perform. So I've certainly noticed a plethora of people that I have Facebook connection with sort of doing live broadcasts. So it typically does seem to be the thing of the moment. Anybody got any particular suggestions on the best way, or their thoughts on the best way that somebody that wants to sort of get involved in this respect, what they should use or utilise?
Yeah, I've still not tried it too much, but it is an open source piece of software, OBS, which you can do sort of multiple camera, multiple screens. Mainly the reason I was looking into it is for getting ModCaf attendees to use it. Obviously it's free, you don't have to get them to buy any software, and you get this link that you can then publish it to any page if you just give the link. So no personal experience yet, but I reckon OBS would be a good place to do some reading on at least.
Certainly, and that's the program that's certainly favoured by a lot of online gamers. They stream. The other option, but it can be quite pricey, but it tends to be a lot easier to use once you get going. Is the sort of hardware solution. So there's quite a few hardware streaming devices which take a variety of signals into them, and then they just spit it out in a sort of H.264 format, and you can get quite good results in that respect.
Yeah, there's this really cool program, which I do apologize for not remembering the name straight away. It starts with audio. I need to remember that. I'll remember in a second. It's basically a plugin for your DAW that allows you to stream live with other few people what you're doing with no latency. So they're all live in the same situation, looking at what you're doing. So that's really cool for producers to work with musicians, and kind of vice versa, I think. In a way, yeah, you're right. Performers and musicians need to find a different way, and streaming is the most obvious one that comes to mind, because that's what people do best. And people, they can do it in their balconies, or if you want to do it in front of more people, you're going to have to do it online, I suppose. Yeah.
So what about you, Andy? Because I believe that you something that you were looking at already, but you're potentially... So I was going to say that you were sort of looking to go even more virtual with the studio in respect to sort of doing mastering and that type of thing.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a difficult one at the moment, because obviously considering the fact that I have to travel to get up there, it's obviously something that we are still just kind of working out. There are people that are still kind of there around the facility, but I'm not always up. Just purely for getting up and down. With that being said, yeah, we've been having a look into different ways of how we can kind of still keep going, obviously depending on how long this takes. Obviously there's a simple kind of ping an email, get with the master, get it, send it back, which is how we've been operating in the past as well. But obviously some people prefer to be able to sit in on sessions and kind of hear what you're doing as you're doing it. So I've seen a app whose name I can't remember, and where I saw it, again I can't remember, so I am going to have to find it. But it's basically, you'd put it on the end, and this is a really cool one, and I definitely don't want to take credit for this, so I will find it out by the end of this video. But it basically, you'd put it on... It's a plugin that you can use within Logic or whatever software you're using, and it basically just streams whichever channel you've got coming out. Now that can work while you're recording, or it can work just as you're kind of playing things through.
That's a really cool idea.
What's that?
That's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah, it's really good. So theoretically, I could be doing a master, stream the recording output of that master to the client. They'd be able to listen to it and say, okay, well, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but let's try that, and I can tweak, and then we can kind of go back and do it again. But I've seen people, the opportunities of using it are pretty endless. A bit like how we're doing at the moment with a Zoom chat. Say, Telma, you could be playing guitar and you could have your microphone set up. I could be streaming the output of your microphones, listening back to it on my system and saying, oh, it doesn't sound quite right. Can you move the guitar a little bit more to there? Yeah. And we see how that sounds. Or alternatively, even, you can take control of people's mixes remotely. Same deal. You put the that plug-in on the output of whatever you're kind of mixing, and then screen grab or take over control of Telmo's laptop, do the mix on there while I'm able to listen to it, and then put it back. So it's really cool. And while that's going on, I'm just going to find out who it was that shared this on YouTube, because it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty cool system, assuming it all works out. Yeah, I think hopefully by next week I'll have had some experience with OBS, so I'll get to report back on how that works with audio stuff.
I believe OBX is very effective, but there's a lot going on. It's quite, I wouldn't say complicated, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it looks like they haven't really spent any time on the interface. It's just a little homegrown.
Yeah, sort of open source.
I found the app that I was talking about. It's probably the same that you, Andy, were mentioning. Is it called Audio Movers?
Quite possibly. I'm just looking into it now, but I've found one thing, that it was Production Advice that recommended it. And that guy's really, really cool.
Audio Movers does exactly that. So it streams in real time with low latency from your DAW. So I presume that's the same sort of thing we were talking about.
Audio Movers, yeah, that's it.
So there's a free version, a trial version that can be used for 7 days. And then obviously there's a subscription service as well for it. So definitely something to try out.
Theoretically, it's just it's kind of like a window in a browser that it creates. So theoretically, you could have a few people listening to it as long as they've got the access. But that's just the kind of off the back of a cigarette packet guess. Not 100% accurate.
How many participants can you have working on it at any one time?
I don't know, actually.
I mean, initially for the purposes of this podcast and being a Cubase user, I was hoping that a Cubase product called VST Connect Pro would have actually facilitated what we need to do, but it only allows one external or remote participant.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd have to... So it's really for having remote sessions or that type of thing. So you can have a musician remotely engaging with the Cubase session that you're having locally, but unfortunately only one at a time. If it had been the case that I could have utilised it for our purposes, I could have sent out the various... the app to actually engage with is free, so you have to have VST Connect Pro at your end, and then there's a light version which you send out. VST Connect Performer, which is, I believe, is free to download and allows the participants to actually engage with your recording session.
Sounds very logical to me. Has anybody found some cool songs recently?
Yeah.
For the playlist.
Music.
So remember, if you're a Spotify user, there is a RackAddicts After Hours playlist that you should absolutely follow, because there are some bangers in there.
I haven't got anything this week
I
at all,
unfortunately have nothing.
Funny enough,
Nothing new.
just found out this week.
I'm hoping on you, Telmo.
Funny enough, kind of crosses a bridge between the sort of stuff that we talk here at this podcast and early synthesizers. However, it's not quite a synthesizer, but it's an early form of one. It's the Mellotron.
Oh, yeah.
And the band is called Mellotron Variations. So, for those who don't know, Mellotron is basically some sort of a tape that's attached to every key that creates a loop for as long as you press it. So you can hear the Mellotron in the 60s with the Beatles and David Bowie.
Lots of prog rock stuff as well.
Yeah, lots of prog rock stuff. King Crimson, Robert Fripp. Yeah, you can hear it more recently as well with Radiohead. So this group, Mellotron Variations, they're a 4-piece band. They've got a tiny desk as well, so you make sure you check that out.
Oh, I've totally scrolled past that thumbnail and gone, 4 Mellotrons, what?
Yeah. So one of them, it's actually a 1963 or a 64 one, I think. It's an actual original cool Mellotron, whereas the other ones might be a more modern versions of what a Mellotron is. But yeah.
Have you got a favourite tune?
That will have to be Agent Cha-Cha.
There it is. I'll put it in the playlist.
So John Medeski is also in it. He's got this group with John Scofield. He's a jazz head. So there's another reason to check it out.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, I've cracked out a couple of Genesis records just to sit and enjoy with some coffee. But that's about it. So if you like, go on the Spotify and have a look at RackAddicts After Hours and just maybe chill. How long have we got on this playlist actually now? It might even be up to an hour. Let's have a look. It doesn't tell me. Oh well. But yeah, enjoy. We've got some definitely a good variety of genres. Stay safe over the next week. Wash your hands. Don't go outside if you don't need to. The usual things. And we'll see you on episode 19. Thanks for listening.